Thank you. Jay, would you lead us in the pledge?
I certainly will. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Would everybody rise for the pledge? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it is formed, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, I would entertain a motion for approval of the overall agenda, and then we'll have a second approval for the consent agenda. So if I hear a motion to approve the agenda,
So moved.
Second?
can you hear me?
Yes,
Yes,
we
sir.
moved and seconded.
Hello?
Hey,
All right,
Jim.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Right, unanimous, thank you. All right, next is a motion to approve or rearrange in any fashion the consent agenda.
Mr. Mayor, before that, we have the swearing in of Ms. Bullock.
Aha.
Oh, okay.
That was one of the revised agenda items for today. So you might be working from a previous agenda.
All right,
I snuck that one in there.
you did indeed.
So to preface that, as I alerted the board on Friday, I'm privileged to alert everyone that we have named Cassie Bullock as our town clerk. We have removed the interim title. She has been a true worker for us and really dedicated. And in her time as interim in the last few months, she's really just shown her desire to learn, her desire to do better, desire to help the town grow. And I really look forward to working with her and everything that we're going to get done with her in that capacity. So I'm really excited about it. I know she's really excited about it. And it's been really nice to hear all the kind things so far that everyone's already said. So we welcome Cassie in that position, and as part of that, the pomp and circumstance with that, part of her being officially sworn in, so she can carry out those capacities.
All right, congratulations, Cassie. Unfortunately, Chris, I do not have the form, the format for that swearing in.
I sent you an email with the language.
Well, just a second, I will find it.
If not, we can re-forward that too, just so you have it.
Just a moment, we'll get this done. Okay. Emails. Okay. Okay, I certainly don't see it, Chris.
Let me see if I can get it back to you.
Chris, I'm about to forward it to him.
I got it. Just a second. I'm pulling it up now, Chris.
Oh, okay, good.
Here we go. Okay. All right. Cassie, I think we probably need to stand even though we're virtually, right? Virtual, right?
I have the Bible as well.
Very good in the Bible. If you would repeat after me. I, Cassandra M. Bullock,
I, Cassandra M. Bullock,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support and maintain the Constitution
that I will support and maintain the Constitution
and laws of the United States
and the laws of the United States
and the Constitution and laws of North Carolina,
and the Constitution and the laws of North Carolina,
not inconsistent therewith,
not inconsistent therewith,
and that I will faithfully discharge
and that I will faithfully discharge
the duties of my office
the duties of my office
as clerk of the town of Pittsboro, so help me God.
as clerk of the town of Pittsboro, so help me God.
Hey, congratulations, Cassie.
Thank you.
Congratulations, Casey.
Thank
Cassie.
you, Dan. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris.
Congratulations, congratulations. Very happy.
All right, so, very good. Thank you, Chris, for sending me that. I would entertain a motion to either approve or modify the consent agenda.
I would make a motion to approve the consent agenda with the modifications to the minutes that I think I provided, as well as Kyle.
There a second?
Second.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Unanimous? All right. That then takes us to the first item of regular business, which is citizen matters. Cassie, do we have anything?
No, sir.
Okay. All right, it brings up old business, the 2020 bicycle and pedestrian plan. And Jeff, is that your?
Yep, that's me, Mayor. Thank you, Mayor and members of the board. Tonight is a draft. I would call it a final draft of the bike ped plan. If you remember back in July, we had Stephen with Alta Planning with us, and he gave a presentation. Alta Planning is the consultant that NCDOT selected to work with the town of Pittsburgh to update and essentially write a new bicycle and pedestrian plan for the town. We were awarded a grant in 2018, and this is the works of that grant. And what is before you is all the work that happened in 2019 and 2020. Back in July, it was presented to the board. The board needed some additional time to take a look at the plan itself. We came back in August. There were some comments that was given to staff and to the consultant, and we received a handful of other comments, and we have updated the plan. Stephen has updated the plan based off of those comments that we received. And in my memo, I sort of selected all the comments that we had received from Commissioner Shipp, and we addressed those comments. If there's questions that we would like to talk about tonight, then we certainly can do that. And it's certainly up to the board, but if you feel compelled, there is a resolution to approve the 2020 bicycle and pedestrian plan.
Okay. Thank you, Jeff. Discussion?
I'd just like to say, I think it's a really excellent plan. I'm excited to start implementing it, and I appreciate you guys going through all the comments and making those changes and stuff. I think it's a really good plan. I would ask the staff put together, I guess, an ordinance for us for next time to start the bicycle and pedestrian advisory committee. I guess I know you'd mentioned it could be part of the Parks and Rec plan, but I think it might need some effort that is outside of that group. So I'm not sure if it falls under them or if it's separate, but and I noted as well that that's one of the requirements for a bicycle friendly city.
Sure. That committee is going to hold this plan accountable or make sure that we all, staff and the board, is accountable to the plan. That was the suggestion by the consultant, that we create this committee that sort of make sure that we do right by the plan. And we've had a couple of folks from the current steering committee, and I meant to grab those names. I want to say one was the president of the community college, and one may have been a citizen who had said that they would step up and serve as well. So we would need some recruitment of folks who wanted to be on this committee, but I can work with the town manager to come up with an ordinance creating that committee.
Great. Thank you.
Well, I agree. I think the document is really, really well done. And I do have some comments that I'd like to put out on the table that I had not gotten out heretofore. And one of the comments I have is, as a published document, if people are reviewing it in paper form, I think we've got some legibility issues just in the graphics. And I know as a PDF, it's fine. You zoom in on the graphic and everything is legible. But as a paper product, you know, there's some things that you simply can't read.
Yes, yes.
You know,
and we're well aware of those. We try to give you all enough to review the plan, but we will print in a very much clear document. What was sent to us was a PDF. But
okay.
we will actually get all the files from Alta Planning that we can refine those files if need be. Stephen was
Okay.
waiting until after the adoption and any other loose ends that we needed to take care of
Okay.
before he sent us the actual program that made the files that made the document.
Well, then I will take my list, which identifies it by page and where I found a discrepancy, and I'll just email it to you.
Okay,
We don't have to go through it all tonight.
So they're more just housekeeping items?
I think this list is
Okay, good.
just a legibility. I know, and there will be probably some reformatting once you get the list, because, you know, there's some stuff that overlaps on each other, so you can't read it. So it's just
Okay.
moving things around. But
Okay.
I do have some comments that I'd like the team to consider. And I could just go through it. It's not too lengthy, honestly. But couple of things. There on page 12, there makes reference to a concentration of antique shops in downtown. And I think that's probably not an accurate statement at this time, and I think would give some people the idea that maybe the authors of this document aren't as familiar with Pittsboro as they should be. And I don't think we ever want to give anyone that impression, because I think it's a really, really fine job and an excellent project. So we may want to strike
like unique shops.
Well, I think that's what happened out on 64 bypass, that it went from, the sign went from antique shops to unique shops. So
okay, all right.
That would work.
That would work. Okay.
That would work. It has worked in the past.
Okay. All right.
On one of the maps, map 3.2, and it's pages 38 and 39.
So let me share my screen and I can bring it up.
Okay.
All right. Okay. Can you give that number, that page number again?
Pages 38 and 39. It's a map that I think spans both. Spans the spine.
A little bit too much. Yeah, there we go. All right.
I can't see the map. I can still only see your Windows page.
Okay, let me try that again. Let's share screen. How about that?
Okay.
You can see it now? Okay.
Yep.
All right.
And if you were able to zoom in a little, what I'm finding is little segments of bike lane connections that connect to shared lane / sidewalk connections.
Okay.
Like, yeah, if you go there, so Hanks, let's see, I think it's, no, Salisbury and Creedle
Okay. That would be
has
over
got a
here.
little section of bike lane north to Hank Street. And it's like,
in this area, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know,
Okay.
just seems odd that we would go from a shared lane sidewalk to all of a sudden a bike lane and then back to a shared lane sidewalk. Seems odd to me, but maybe in the field it's not odd at all. I don't know.
Let me
So
orient myself here a little bit. All right. So we've got coming down Hank Street, and we've got sidewalk. Then we're going to go into a shared use path. And you're saying there's some bike lane.
yeah, isn't the yellow the bike lane?
This right here. the
Yeah.
yellow,
Yeah.
Dash.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is what that's indicating through there. So we've got some sidewalk and bike lane essentially along the town hall property.
Yeah.
And then it looks like a bike lane turns up Cradle Street, but no sidewalk in the area. Let's see, unless bike lane. Yeah. Okay.
Just seemed a little odd. Maybe get them to confirm their thinking on it.
All right, I can do that.
Okay.
Is your question just the connection to Hank Street?
No, it's that little section right there where it's bike lane, as opposed to what otherwise we seem to be calling for is shared lane sidewalk.
Right. That
Most of it is
Pink-
shared lane sidewalk.
pink area there should be. Yeah, I bet that's just a layering issue, and it should be shared path or sidewalk. Okay, good catch. Okay.
This is a technical, well, a question for the data. On page 4, it says that greenways and side paths reduce injury by 60% compared with on-street facilities.
Okay.
Is it saying that the streets that have sidewalk and bike lanes, is that what the side paths and greenways are being compared to? Streets that have both the sidewalk and the bike lane? I did not find that I could confirm or deny that.
Okay, so we're talking about improving safety through here.
Yeah.
Is that your page 4 as well?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I could talk to Stephen about that. I almost guarantee that this is some, pulled out data from other plans.
Yeah. And related to that, the document discusses, greenways and side paths being more safe.
Mm-hmm.
And when it had the data about, I think, crashes and injuries, I could not tell, did it include injuries that occur when bicycles and pedestrians crash with each other? Or was it all crashes associated with automobiles? And one of the reasons I asked that is I know that sometimes these greenways get really congested and sometimes there are mishaps out there, and I wonder if that's also documented.
It probably should be and will be much more when we have a lot more greenways in town, but I believe this data set was just vehicle crashes as it relates to a pedestrian and or bicycle.
Okay. I think, I forget what section this is, but I think it talks about all the previous documents that supported this document.
Mm-hmm.
such as, the 2009 PED plan, the Chatham County Bike Plan, Chatham County Transportation Plan, TARPO, Bike PED Planning Framework, all of those things. Can we make sure we've got links to those documents in this document?
So make this document sort of a dynamic document when we load it onto the web. And be able to hyperlink to whenever there's a plan or some. Okay, we can.
That would be great. Now, I think we're already doing that with some of our other document references here. It says go to this location, but in black and white. It's kind of a different. It's a shaded gray, and I'm assuming it's a different color indicating a hyperlink.
Okay. Being in PDF form, we'll take a look at that.
Okay.
Yeah, Commissioner Fiocco, would you be satisfied if those links were simply on the same page as the bike ped plan?
If they were under one single list, that'd be fine. But
as sources cited, or something like that, or
yeah, we could do that, John. Yeah,
I think that might be a little bit easier to keep alive, as links have a tendency to expire.
Good point.
If it were on a web page that was very easily managed by staff rather than inside a PDF.
Good point. Excellent point.
That's a good point, Commissioner Bonnets. Yes. Okay, we can do that.
And then I'd say, the long-term vision comprehensive network section is absolutely fantastic. Shows a big picture of major elements and is easily understood. Really liked that. As far as implementation, has the NC DOT IMD approved the plan?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Excellent. And the Bike Ped Advisory Committee, as I read through this document, boy, they could sure take on a huge load. And honestly, what it did was identify a huge load. And I think it'd be great if we had a really engaged group. And the suggestion was that the advisory committee or the steering committee membership could be part of that. That would be fantastic if we could really get a bunch of folks on there, because there's a ton of work to do as far as monitoring what the DOT is doing, making sure we check in. Now, granted, we've got a pretty good attendance at the TARPO meetings, and we should be able to, help keep ourselves informed in that regard. But there's so many facets to the DOT and how to work with their organization and what's available and how our community can benefit from it, that we would really do well to get a very dedicated group of folks to the Bike Ped Advisory Committee.
I think that's what the consultant was pushing us towards, was having a dedicated committee. He has seen more success when that has occurred, whether it's the Parks and Rec Advisory Board or a separate committee, having some, citizen-led committee that looks at this document periodically and makes recommendations to staff and to the town board. It's just another set of eyes on the work that we're all doing and giving recommendations. So, yeah, we're going to work hard to make that happen.
Yeah, and I honestly, I doubt that you're going to get any traction with the Parks and Rec Advisory Board. They've got plenty, and
they do.
They really do, and they're only going to get more and more as we go on.
And honestly, I haven't even broached the topic to them, because I don't want them to feel compelled to do it or to say yes to one more thing. So I want us to exhaust the current steering committee and others in the community who may want to be on this type of committee for us. So I hear you. Yes.
Yeah. Jeff, how do we fold this into the comprehensive transportation plan? I
So-
think right now we only have what, thoroughfare component?
That's correct.
Okay.
Right now it is high level major roads going through and around Pittsboro. That's part of our CTP. But we're going to start, and Teresa, thank God for Teresa being on board. She has already started a process of communicating with our folks at TJ Cog about getting an update, helping us facilitate with DOT. And as anyone who was around during the last CTP, it's going to be a major project for us because it can take some time to get through a CTP update. We've been waiting to pull the trigger on that CTP update for the small area plan for Chatham Park to be submitted and not necessarily approved, but submitted in a form that we can review any CTP updates against their plans. And this obviously will roll right into our comprehensive transportation plan as well.
Got it. Okay. So that is pretty much what I've got. Like I said, it was mostly minor stuff, but
Okay.
now, and I would say also that I think it's on page 53 where we talk about the use of easements for greenways, and I was really, eagerly looking for language making reference to that because they are the perfect corridors for us to have a robust recreation and transportation greenway network.
Anytime we can get a utility easement, we're also going to get a greenway easement. That's going to be
perfect.
sort of our marching orders. And it's just good policy to do that.
It is. And honestly, everyone's going to appreciate it when the links and nodes get connected.
Yep.
And I'll send you this list, Jeff.
Thank you, Michael.
Yep.
Any other discussion?
I just want to express gratitude to staff and to the consultants and to the many volunteers who participated in this process. I think it's a really, really fine document, and I'm so pleased that we've accomplished so much with it. Thank you.
Thank you, John. I'll pass along the words.
Thank you.
Is it the pleasure of the board to consider this for adoption this evening, or do you feel that you need additional time?
I would move that we adopt the bicycle and pedestrian plan with Commissioner Fioco's comments added in prior to that.
Okay.
Or after that, I guess.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. Thank you, board.
Okay. Thank you all on that one. All right. So the next item of business is manager update. Chris?
I think we've got the Chapter 27 amendments first, Mayor.
Oh, I'm sorry, we do. I missed that. Yep, we do have the chapter 27. Almost went right by it. It's such a small document. So, yes, discussion concerning the chapter. Go ahead, Chris, if you want to introduce that.
Sure. And I hope everyone was able to see the revised version that Cassie sent out this afternoon. I'm very appreciative to Commissioner Shipp's comments as well as Mr. Messick's comments that I sent over the weekend and then last week. So I think they made that document a little more clear, and that's our effort with this whole thing, was to make it more clear. I wasn't trying to overhaul Chapter 27, and for those, that's basically the board's directives. So we'll really try to just provide some flexibility to the board. There was some really, I'll call it stringent language within it that specified the meetings had to be at town hall and they had to be at 7:30 and they had to be on the second and fourth Monday. I think it'd be my recommendation of the board that to allow each sitting board and the people that directly elected you to alert you as time goes on what's the best for our board of commissioners, when they should meet, where they should meet, and things of that nature. Certainly in a world where we're meeting virtually, one might argue that we've been meeting against our own ordinance by meeting virtually, because it said we had to meet at town hall at a certain time, and we've stuck to that time, and certainly with the emergency declarations that we have in place, as part of the COVID-19, I think we're all good there. But as time goes on, we want to make it a little more flexible and allow the board to handle its business as it sees fit from a year-to-year basis. So I think the main changes with it, again, I tried not to overhaul it, so there's no real major policy shift here, in my opinion. I'm going to go over 4 items individually and just reference them. Section 27201.
Chris, could I interrupt for just a moment?
Yes, sir.
I did not receive an updated document that I can find.
I believe it was emailed this afternoon. Cassie, did.
Yes, it was through the board's email.
Okay.
It's also updated on the website now.
Okay.
Well, the version on the website.
And the only version from the version you saw, Commissioner Fiocco,
Yeah.
was Kyle's comments, basically where I had said the board would set the meeting agendas or the meeting dates in January, and he made the good point of, if we set it in January, we're already in that year. And I was like, no, that makes great sense. So I took his advice and changed that to December. And I didn't feel like anybody was going to be too upset over that. Some of the rules, and those were remnants from the previous language from the school government's kind of cross-reference. Mr. Messick caught those as well. And again, I tried to leave as much alone as I could. So I kind of left some of those unattended to because they were already referenced in there. And so what I did through some of those was basically just reference that 2003 edition version of basically how a council runs a meeting. And so I just put a direct reference beside each one of those rules. A couple of them I just struck from the language where it says like as referenced in section 7. If the language was already there and it says as referenced, I think that's a redundant section or phrase. So I just struck those from that. And the only other thing was with the, let me scroll through it real quick. It was one of the ones I was going to address this evening with 27-405, the duty to vote. I added a phrase or sentence at the end, basically defining, my dog wants to chime in. My wife's coming into that real quick. Basically where it says, if we meet virtually, that your duty to vote is the same as like, so if you're logged into this meeting and you abstain and you have not been formally recused, if you abstain from a vote, it's considered a vote in the affirmative, just the same as it would be if we were in person.
Yep.
And so we clarified that language, and that was really all that changed from the version that you received on Friday and the version that went out this afternoon.
Okay.
So,
I can't find it, but if you could just resend it so I have it.
Sure, absolutely.
Okay.
So that covers one of the ones I was going to go over. That was 27-405. The first one, 27-201, is the regular meetings. And as you can see, I struck a fair bit of that language from that one. And again, really it was for you to set the meetings for yourselves, the planning board and the board of adjustment. You set those meetings in December, and that you just are confining yourselves to holding a meeting each month. We do that already. We already only hold one meeting in July and one meeting in December. And really this section is almost, I'll say superfluous and a little bit redundant, because if you look at our town charter, the town charter specifies that we have a meeting, at least one regular meeting a month. So really it's just a reiteration of the town's charter into chapter 27. So again, just for clarity's sake, we left that. And again, it's open-ended. But it specifies that we will meet regularly and we will meet monthly. Section.
Chris,
Yes, sir.
I think one thing I would strike out of there that I missed in my initial comments is the start time. Like for example, it still references 7:30 for the start time of the planning board meeting. So I think we could define the start time as we adopt the calendar as well without including them in here.
The version I have has all the time stricken.
Yeah, the one that I received from Cassandra today does still have 7:30 from 2:41 p.m.
I will make sure that the version I printed out from that has it stricken. So that must be some sort of weird.
Maybe how the markup is
transmission.
showing that strike throughs are
Yeah.
not showing or something.
Maybe.
Yeah, it could be I'm looking at a PDF through Chrome browser.
Okay. Well, I'll make sure that's adjusted. But I would agree, and I wanted to get all those times out of there because again, to probably beat it to death. If you want to meet at 3 p.m., meet at 3 p.m. If you feel like that we should meet at 6, meet at 6, and allow us to work that schedule out as time goes on, and not feel like you have to do an ordinance amendment or go against the code every time you want to do so.
It's all properly publicly noticed anyway. So
correct. So all that's going to be in our notices. So anybody who cares, so to speak, will be able to find out, and we'll try to be as consistent as we can. That's why we still want to set that schedule for the entire year, so everyone knows what to expect and how to prepare their year with how we want to meet. Any more on that one? Okay. 27-306. This is the setting of the agenda, and this is one that we've discussed most recently of the kind of the mandated order of procedure. And what I've done here is, again, the town charter specifies and earlier, as well as in chapter 27, it specifies the town manager shall set the agenda, and the board has to adopt that agenda. So we're going to still do that. However, I just changed the shall to a may, and it allows the board or myself to propose an agenda. Again, we dealt with a couple weeks ago with Dr. Birnbaum, who was going to speak in front of us, and we could have changed it at the beginning. She ended up getting pushed down the agenda, which was unfortunate for anybody who has to sit through maybe a couple, 3 hours before they get to their item. And so that was kind of one of the obvious things we dealt with recently was if we want to move that up because we feel like the public is interested in that, then it gives me the ability to go ahead and set that for y'all, and then you can just adopt it or change it as you see fit. And so what we've done is just say, these are the items that may be on that agenda, maybe fewer, maybe more. And then as we get to each individual meeting, we can set that accordingly, again, to better serve the needs of our public.
Just Chris, one that I noticed that is not on there is the mayor comments.
Okay, I will.
I don't know if that was intentional.
No, it wasn't.
I'm sure it wasn't. And then I know we talked about this, and it's as you set your agenda and as we can move things around. But I think that it would be, or my preference is that we do those updates front loaded, like before old business, so that they can come up. For example, at the end of the meeting tonight, hopefully it will not be that long, but some other meetings that may happen at 10, 11 o'clock at night. Mm-hmm. And I think it's a good time to get information out to the public. I think we should still have a time that maybe miscellaneous at the very end of the meeting to go around and see if there's anything else to mention. But
and that's one of the things where I put that second sentence in the sentence structure above the bullets, where it says the order of the agenda may vary and may include the following topics or others as necessary. You kind of bias the list because you have to put it in some form of order. But I don't want to have the board think or anyone think that just because commissioner comments is third from the bottom or second from the bottom that's where it will actually be placed. I think my intent will be to put those much higher up on the agenda. Kind of the people who may be interested in certain things or speaking their piece, so to speak, can go ahead and do that to the board, and then we can process the rest of our business on the agenda. If they want to stay on the call or stay in the room, they may. But to allow people that resource to speak publicly before we really get into the heat of the rest of the business items.
Okay.
Well, Chris, I think you set this up perfectly to move things around. And what I hear Kyle saying is, as a general format, would like to have these updates from the commissioners and the mayor and the manager earlier in the meeting because folks are more likely to be paying better attention and have more patience at that point.
Yes.
Yeah, and part of the conversation that I've had too, I believe it was with the mayor, in a conversation as we were preparing the agenda, was, when you get the consent agenda, you do everything in one fell swoop. So I would think we would do, the adoption of the agenda, and then my comments, the mayor's comments, the board's comments, and then proceed with the consent agenda. Because if there's anything that's brought up and we go, oh man, I wish I had known that. Otherwise, I wouldn't have voted on that one particular item that might be on the consent agenda. And if I had that advantage of knowledge, I would have asked her to move that to miscellaneous, and we would dispose of that item in that manner, not as a consent agenda item. So I think if we front load the meeting with those things, it allows anyone who wants to log in, particularly right now, maybe to be on the meeting for 15, 20 minutes, and they get all the information they seek from us, and they say, well, I really have no interest in that rezoning, but I'd love to hear what my commissioners are thinking.
Right.
And so having that front loaded, I think will serve multiple purposes. And I think ultimately, and our goal here is both to have efficient meetings, but to serve the public and inform them as best we can.
I like it.
Yep.
Great. And then the last one, because we already talked about 405, the last one I want to reference because it was completely stricken, and I want to provide an explanation to it, is 27-502, and that's zoning protest petitions. The reason that is fully deleted is that those are no longer a part of statute. And so a few years ago, those were removed from statutes for protest petitions, which effectively required supermajorities. And since those are no longer in effect, we really don't need to have it in our ordinances. So that's why they're just fully stricken.
Right.
And then pretty much everything else is really kind of a cleanup of the text. As you'll notice, I just felt like it was kind of awkward that it kept saying council and council and council and council. And again, we were using, the school government's nomenclature and diction where it referenced council. But I think when someone who's interested in how we handle business, and they go, well, it said Board of Commissioners here, and then it said council there. I don't know who this council is, but so in order to make that clear that when we say council, we actually mean Board of Commissioners. And if we mean that, it's not too difficult to go ahead and just change that text. So a lot of that was just cleaning up some of those things. As you can see, I redlined, changing some from lowercase to capital. Definitely non-substantive in its effect, but certainly wanted to show you everything that I did change. So even the subtlest comma or capitalization, I did put in red. And I would note as well that typically a code of ordinance amendment would be a consent agenda item. It doesn't need to be new business or miscellaneous. It can be done on the consent agenda. But since we had not discussed this as a larger group, and I wanted to make sure everyone was good with the language, that I did put this as new business for that. In the future, you might get a code of ordinance amendment, and it's simply on the consent agenda, and that's perfectly okay. So the direction I would see tonight is, are you okay with the language? Do you want to see it on the 28th fully cleaned up, and then we can adopt on the consent agenda there? Or if you're ready tonight, the language is pretty much there. I've got those comments, certainly to add the mayor's comments back into that list. I don't want to disgruntle the mayor by any means. But I think everything else was there. And but again, I understand there may have been some issue with the striking of some of the times. So if it's more comfortable, we can obviously just bring this back on the 28th and take care of that pretty quickly. Or if you have any other comments, I welcome those as well.
I've got a couple of comments and questions on
Okay.
The 4029, 27-4029 makes references to several sections that are stated as 401, and I think those are supposed to be 402.
Okay.
Like 401.14, it doesn't exist. 401.5 doesn't exist. But if you look at 402 sections, those are germane and relevant to the references made.
That's part of our wild goose chase that we try to send people on.
I know. I know. Oh, I found some of the geese running around.
Okay, it's all part of our strategy, but I guess we'll change it.
All right. And I got a couple of things that I just caught.
Sure.
27-1201 makes reference to the Board of Adjustments. And I know that was caught previously in the document, so we don't need the S.
Okay. Which one was that again?
27-1201. I know, do we want to put page numbers on this?
I didn't put page numbers because it's the numbers within the code itself. So
Right.
they're left blank right here.
Yeah.
And again, you're likely going to find certain errors in there that pre-existed. That again, I try not to touch too much, but certainly it's a great time to correct these things.
That's what I'm thinking. Yeah. While we're in it.
Yep.
You okay with that? Moving on.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. 27-1301. The first sentence says the BOC or the mayor. If the mayor is delegated that power by the, and then it doesn't reference who it's delegated by, and I'm assuming it's the BOC.
Okay. I presume so.
Yeah.
I
And
don't know who else it would be. So.
right. And then later on in that section, it makes reference to committees. It says board or committees, so I'm thinking it's boards or committees.
Okay.
And then I think that was it, honestly, except I've got an interesting question for Mr. Messick. In section 402.7, it says, under the open meetings law, public bodies probably must.
What section were you talking about?
402.7.
It's to leave a closed session.
Yeah, probably must.
Yeah. Under open meetings law, public bodies probably must return to open session.
I figured that was unclear in state law. So it was a good idea to do.
They must return to open session.
Yeah, probably.
There you go. That's where the word came from.
There we go. Very good. Do we want to do anything with that, Paul?
Well, we probably ought to fix it.
Okay.
I will offer to the board that we will strike the word probably.
Let's change it to maybe.
How about probably maybe must?
Yeah, there you go.
How about on occasion?
Okay.
Well, if the roof fell in, you might want to just leave. But
But we'd still be in session.
okay, we can fix that.
That's all I got.
We'll put a force majeure policy into that one too.
Absolutely.
Great.
That's it.
Yeah.
Thanks, Chris, for taking care of this. I think it's a help.
Great. Yeah. And again, I think as we progress in our operations here, and we get more in tune with the Code of Ordinances, I think there will be some more substantive types of changes that we look at the Code of Ordinances. Maybe not with the board policies itself, but maybe some other sections. And so as you see some of these things, we'll take note of them, be it with this iteration or other future iterations, that we can take a more advanced analysis of it, but knowing that the current needs, we're really trying to just get some flexibility for the board in setting of its agenda and setting of its meetings. We didn't want to throw everything in and really muddle it up. Just say, let's take care of what we need to take care of, make this more succinct, and then we'll deal with the larger problems should they arise later.
In other words, he's trying to break you all in.
Mm-hmm.
Easy.
Probably a good idea.
Yes.
Well, is it the pleasure of the board to adopt this change as amended this evening, or do you wish it to come back on the 28th? for a final look.
Mayor
I
Noss,
would move to, go ahead. Jeff.
Mayor Noss, would you like to have those comments documented?
Yes.
Okay, so should we hold with deference to your input?
Yeah. I think for this kind of thing, it doesn't seem to me that there's an urgency, and it seems to me that
Right.
with this, we ought to be careful. And I guess I kind of would like to, personally, I would kind of like to see the results of tonight's in a document final before I encourage the approval of it.
And I'm completely okay with that. That's why I gave you the red line version for this evening, was so
Right.
you can see the changes. But I think it may be helpful too. And it's been great feedback tonight. What I'll do is I'll provide you a red line and a clean version for your consent agenda for the 28th. And then once we approve that, then we'll be able to set the agenda however we wish at that point, because it'll be in effect by the time we get through consent.
Right.
Sounds good.
All right. So is that amenable to the board that we bring this back then on the 28th?
That's great.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you. Christopher, okay, will you send me your comments just to make sure I've got all of those incorporated?
Yeah, I'll do that.
Great, thank you.
I'll get them to you tomorrow.
Perfect.
Okay. All right. So now we'll go to commissioner concerns, manager updates. First, Chris.
Yep, so obviously I've got a couple updates for y'all. The primary one we have again was with Cassie being the town clerk. So want to thank her again, and that's gonna be a really big thing for us moving forward. A few other things that we have here. As you know, we're kind of in the heart of hurricane season. So just kind of the full announcement to that, saying to y'all, to our citizens and such, I'm meeting with emergency management weekly to talk about both COVID-19 as well as some of the hurricane things. Hurricane Sally, as it was just developed today, will probably reach us by the weekend. So for the next probably 4 to 6 weeks, we just advise all of our citizens and residents to pay attention to the weather. If we can get to November, we're probably okay. So that's always kind of that full disclosure of hurricane season in the Carolinas. Pivoting rather quickly and with no nexus, Chatham Parkway, the road, as we talked about with the bonus allocations and such, Chatham Parkway is supposed to be open to the public next Monday, the 21st. So we're looking forward to getting that road open. As part of that bonus allocation, the request will go from Chatham Park investors to the town and then DOT. DOT is looking to process that on their October 8th DOT board meeting. And so everything's progressing there. Went out there the other day on site for one of their final inspections. Everything was in order or close to being in order. And so I know they've been working diligently to get that road open. Our town parks are now open again, which is pretty exciting for our residents. Under the Governor Cooper's phase 2.5, parks are allowed to be open. Our staff is trying to get out there as often as they can. I know we're getting out there at least twice a week to make sure we get out there and sanitize and make sure everyone feels safe to participate in those park activities. They've been well used in the last week or so since they've been open. And so that's a really big step forward into a lot of progress. We want to hopefully tread lightly as we move forward, and so we don't have a fallback. But I think getting the parks up reopened is a good sign forward. Let's see here. It's early voting is October 15th through 31st. So you'll probably see more signs, more advertisements, more press for that as the days go forward. Certainly as we get to those days, there'll be a lot more politicking around town. So just be advised for anybody who may be involved in that. One of the interesting things we had on our call this morning with emergency management was that the Chatham County Aging Council has the ability to, the Chatham News and Record, they worked with them for actually, I think it was 200 subscriptions to the Chatham News and Record, primarily oriented for our senior population. So if you know anybody who could use a subscription to the Chatham News and Record and be more informed about their community, I advise them to contact the Chatham County Aging Council. I can certainly connect them through as well if you want to send them to me. So I think that was a really good thing and something that really helps the people around us. If you see any helicopters around Jordan Lake in increasing numbers, do not be alarmed. Emergency management as well as part of our call this morning was talking about some of their training exercises on Jordan Lake. And so again, a part of hurricanes and stuff, they need to be around water and practice some of those exercises. So if you see more helicopters, that is what that is. On the September 26th, that Saturday, the VFW is hosting a blood drive from 10:30 to 2:30 that afternoon. And so if anybody who's willing to participate, or you may know someone who wants to, obviously we all know that giving blood is critical in most years, especially this year. So anybody who wants to participate in that, the VFW is hosting that on the 26th of this month. Moving more towards town business, our auditors are in town this week. They'll probably be here for probably till Wednesday or Thursday. Heather's working diligently to get them what they need, so hopefully we get a clean bill of health from our audit. We have gotten some of our sales tax numbers in. As you know, they're 3 years behind, or 3 months behind. 3 years we wouldn't be able to project anything, but 3 months behind. So we have wrapped up fiscal year 20's numbers. We are up 130% above projection. Certainly there was some conservatism as we looked with some of the COVID numbers with it, but we finished the fiscal year 20 130% of where we thought we would be with sales tax, and that's a really good number. We had July's numbers in. We just got those in today, and we were up $29,000 just for July alone. So that's a really positive thing for our local economy. Our utility franchise fees are down $6,000. So that's not great, but overall the net of effect of our economy and all those revenues are going really well. So we're pleased to see that, and hopefully we project as well or better the rest of the year to bring our coffers a little more padding than we had hoped. Everyone was obviously conservative and anxious about how COVID-19 would affect some of these things, and we're still seeing some effects of it, but hopefully our numbers stay strong. And the last thing I have for me is, and this might be much for the people listening as it is for y'all, one of the things I would like for us to do as a town is to create what we call a sunshine list. And there's certainly different versions of this. But functionally what it is that, we always have interested stakeholders in our business, and they want to know what's going on, when it's going on. And just like we would send the board packet to the board, basically with the sunshine list, anyone who's interested will also send him that same email. And so every time we send out a planning board packet, every time we send out a board packet or any other type of thing, rather than having to search through the website, you can sign up to be on a sunshine list, and we'll put you on that distribution list. Basically, you're blind copied, so no one knows who else is on there. It's not going to be some community forum. It's simply just a way to disseminate information for people who care most about it in a convenient manner where they can get it straight to their inbox. As soon as you get it, they'll get it as well. So I think that's just one of the community things that we can do and try to share and expand what we do with our public.
Excellent.
That's great.
Chris, look to Chatham County's website where you can sign up for all kinds of different sunshine lists, if you will. And I know what you're doing is taking an interim step, and I think it's absolutely fabulous. But I think we can look to them as an example of how people might be interested in climate change, and they couldn't give a hoot about, the planning board, right? So.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of one of the things where you unfortunately inundate them with everything at the start, and then as we get more refined, and we say, okay, well, there actually is a sector that really cares about this individual thing, we can work our way towards that. As I spoke with y'all a number of weeks back, we are myself with Mr. Poteet, we're looking for kind of a community alert system. The county uses Rave. I think we're going to do that same thing. We're still working towards that. to basically, like, if we're repairing a water line on your street, you get an alert from us. So we're really just trying to revamp and bolster a lot of the things that we do that disseminates information to the public, both maybe a quick text, hey, we're fixing a water line, or the road's going to be closed in this section, and we can refine those, or things like the Sunshine List where they create some distributions. But that's a great point, Commissioner Fiocco. I'll talk to the county manager and ask them kind of their do's and don'ts with that as we look to expand that program.
Great.
Thank you, Chris.
Great to hear.
Okay. Well, I have two things. The first is I must share with you, I received a absolutely wonderful letter from a 8th grade student at Horton Middle School by the name of Stinson, who told me that there was an awful lot of things going on this year with COVID and school changing and not being able to do the same things that we did before, and some of the things that are going on in the country that he watches on the news. And he wondered if it might be something we'd be interested in. He thinks if we put together a time capsule and we buried it, sort of putting things in there that highlighted this kind of strange year within the town of Pittsburgh, and somebody opened that thing up in 50 years or 75 years or so on, that they might find that very, very interesting. And I wrote him back and I said, I thought it was a very fine idea, and complimented him on that, and said I would bring this up to the Pittsburgh Board of Commissioners, and provided that he would agree to serve on any group or committee that might be put together to actually implement this idea of his. And of course, he said that he would be more than happy to do that. Since then, it occurred to me that we have Chatham 250 coming up next year, which is a celebration of the 250th year of Chatham being a county in North Carolina. And there's a group that the county has put together working on Chatham 250. And so I thought we might want to consider taking this young man's idea and seeing whether or not the Chatham 250 people might be interested in participating in that as well. Certainly with Pittsburgh as the county seat, it might be worthwhile. So I wanted to bring that to your attention, and if there's any comments on that, or if he thinks it's crazy. Otherwise, I kind of want to encourage this young man to continue to work and help him work through this to see if we perhaps could find a site to put a time capsule down and find the right materials and all that sort of thing. I think it would be a very interesting project. And so I wanted to bring that to you, and I'm open to any comments either now or by email or suggestions on it, but I wanted to bring that to the board's attention. Okay. The second thing I had is several meetings ago, Commissioner Shipp and I think with some input from Commissioner Fiocco as well, brought up the issue of some of the zoning sort of, I call them anomalies, but the zoning of the land, for example, next to Horton Middle School was raised. And I know that last year there was a proposal before this board to put a concrete plant in next to a residential area, abutting in residential area, and that the board voted 4-1 against that proposal. I have to assume because they were uncomfortable voting for it. Now, as you know, of course, that since it was a zoning by right, was overturned. I'm just wondering if we ought to take a look at some of these, what I call anomalies, to see whether or not either that zoning or the table of uses for that zoning in those areas are still appropriate. Because what concerns me is that we're going to get ourselves in another no-win situation like the one we had with the concrete plant. perhaps sooner rather than later. I know the land that's zone commercial down by Horton Middle School is up for sale. And I would think someone that's buying that would assume that the zoning table of uses that is provided for that would be the what they were purchasing. And I know there's going to be other development in the same area where the concrete plant is in and some other areas. And so I'm wondering if we ought to take a look at some of those before we get to get into a situation where we have before us a proposal that we don't like, but have no real recourse to turning down. So I just raise it for something for you all to think about. And perhaps at our next meeting, we could ask Chris to put together a few things for us to have a little more formal discussion of it. But I am concerned that we're going to have another 1 or 2 or 3 of these proposals come before this board that they're going to, and you're going to find it just unpleasant to have to vote for it, but knowing full well that there's not much recourse, or the no vote isn't really going to stand up. And so before we get there, I'm just putting the thought in your heads that we might want to consider taking a look at some of these locations, like the commercial zoning next to Horton, and like the M1 and M2 zoning that's abutting planned residential developments, and whether or not the table of uses in that particular case, even if we don't change the zoning, the table of uses might be modified in such a way that would make what went in there more palatable. So I wanted to raise that issue tonight, and appreciate your thinking about it. And if it's the board's pleasure to take a look at that, then perhaps we can ask Mr. Kennedy and staff to take a little look at how we might approach that. So that's all I had for mayor updates.
Just a couple of comments while we're on that. I think that the UDO is meant to address a lot of those things, the table of uses and neighborhood compatibility and things like that. So I think obviously that would be great to have. And then I think in addition, and I guess I'd be cautious about taking staff resources away from completing the UDO to work on interim things unless there's specific case where we need to, because hopefully the UDO is soon.
Are you
Also,
muted?
I think,
There we go.
and then also I think right behind the UDO, or potentially before it, the future land use plan was last updated in 2012, and that could have, you know, a bearing on a lot of these cases as well. So.
Thank you.
Yeah, and Commissioner Shipp, those are great points. You know, the UDO is going to provide really your, I'll say, text relief. It's not going to inherently affect like your overall zonings. It may affect, we may look at certain zoning classifications and the uses that are permitted within those zoning classifications. But I would say the initial step forward that staff is looking right now, and certainly the board will have its due time to review that document. Teresa's working admirably hard towards that, to that end. And but the future land use plan is really what's going to affect those things. You know, when you look at zoning, that'll be one of the requests I've got kind of earmarked for our budget for fiscal year 21-22. Is basically we spend the rest of this fiscal year, we get the UDO in form and adopted, and then we go into the policy creating stage that is the future land use plan. And that's where we look at some of these unique things where we might create an overlay. We might change our zoning classifications. We may you know, split some of these zoning classifications into 1 or 2 more things. So when you have an industrial district and you say, okay, well, this is heavy industrial. Well, there's always a lighter heavy industrial, if that makes sense, where you're going to have your uber noxious uses supposedly, and then your lighter noxious uses supposedly. And so you might end up having 2 different versions of what people would say, but all those are heavy industrial. But you might create some little buffer areas with your zoning with that. And future land use plan is really the forum to handle those types of things. If there are obvious things, we can handle those really anytime. And so I think to the mayor's point, if there's something that is perceived to be low-hanging fruit, you know, I'll be the first person to say our staff is quite busy, especially in the planning department. But if the board wishes for us to tackle something, we'll make sure that it happens, and we'll make sure we get it informed to you as soon as we can. And so I think the UDO will provide some relief, but the future land use plan is really what's going to facilitate some of that major change, because that'll be when you create a higher level of policy.
Chris, and I think you mentioned another very powerful tool as kind of an interim tool that could survive even adoption of a new land use plan, is that's the idea of some overlay zoning.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you, Chris.
Yes, sir.
All right, commissioner updates. We have the order here, but I wonder if we couldn't start with Commissioner Shipp.
Sure. I'll start off with, I did a fully electronic agenda this month on my new iPad from the town. So trying that process out and working it out. And so I really appreciate the movement in that direction. It's a good change, I think. On the Boys and Girls Club, we are continuing to have good attendance and more people interested in that steering committee and shifting into an advisory board. Lots of people on this call are involved in that as well, and just really appreciate the effort that everyone's put in. And we've got a couple potential locations identified, and we're going to be reviewing those over the next couple weeks with Boys and Girls Club Central Carolina staff, as well as Boys and Girls Club national staff, to see about the suitability of those locations. So great progress there. And then Chris had already mentioned the blood drive with the VFW on September 26th. Just want to say, as a member of the VFW as well, it's a pretty unique opportunity that we have in that you'll be able to donate blood, which they have actually, this organization has committed to that going to active duty soldiers in the Durham VA first, and then out to the rest of the community as needed. You'll get a free COVID antibody test out of it, and then it will also result in a $20 donation to the VFW. So it's pretty good all around event, and encourage anybody to sign up that's interested. That's all, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Commissioner Fiocco.
Yeah, okay. Well, I'm gonna try something new this go round. I'm gonna give you an update on the Pittsboro Main Street program. And heretofore, being chair of the design committee, I've pretty much been design centric, and there are other legs to this stool. And so I'm gonna give you some more thorough update. So financial statements for July and August are going to Heather this week. And like the town, Main Street Pittsboro is in the middle of its audit. So this will be the second year that we've got a full audit. And last year came in very clean. The weather is threatening to get a little cooler, so we are looking to start the design for the rain gardens that we plan to replant, as well as the garden planters out in front of the Welcome Center. We are sponsoring the tree lighting ceremony with the PBA, and we have secured a tree donation from a local farmer of about a 16 to 20 foot tree. And again, work with John Petit to have his assistance with our setup and removal. He's been doing that for years, so we'll be working with him there. Talking with the Artist Guild to have the Welcome Center as one of the stops on their studio tour, so that will be fun and exciting. Main Street Pittsboro has a Facebook page and has weekly Love Local contests where folks can win gift certificates to local businesses. And so if you're a Facebook aficionado, then you could have fun there. The print advertising, we are putting it in the visitors and relocation guide, and it's about 10,000 copies. So we're putting forth Pittsboro as a place to visit and relocate. Putting ads in other publications to get eyes of another 35,000 a month. We continue to update our databases on the properties in downtown or in the district, because it is more than just downtown. And continue to review and consider properties for inclusion in the district, maybe possible expansion where it makes sense. Considering text amendments to the downtown overlay district. We think about that on occasion. So if in fact we find something that we think is valuable, we'll bring it up to planning. We are researching the economic benefits of mixed-use downtown development. Can we get, commercial and residential mixed-use buildings? And what's the financial benefit, and what's the interest in the town in finding zoning designations to allow that to happen? The Welcome Center is complete and ready for occupancy, and we hope to open in the fall. Honestly, we'd like to do it in October if it's possible, but we're all playing a lot of things by ear, by what's possible. So the Edwards facades are almost complete, and we are in discussion with 2 parties presently on facade grants for this fiscal year. Now that's what I've got.
Michael, on the tree lighting,
Yeah.
last year after the tree lighting, there was a event to add the celebration of Kwanzaa and Hanukkah.
Yes.
And the weather turned bad and we had it inside the Roadhouse. But I'm trying to remember whether that was a PBA sponsored event or a Main Street sponsored event.
I think it's a PBA sponsored event, and Main Street supports PBA in these efforts. So we donate a lot of volunteer time and help them with that. And this year we'll be providing some funding as well.
Okay.
And
So I thought that was a particularly powerful piece of business last year, and
Yeah.
I hope that continues into this year, and we may be even able to add a couple other traditions into that mix going forward. It just that evening, and it's a way to become even more inclusive, which I know is something we want to do in our town. And it was very successful last year, and I hope we build on it. So thank you.
Yeah.
Thank Main Street for supporting the PBA on that issue.
And one thing to note, I think Chris took some of my firepower when he mentioned it in his update, but he presented himself to the PBA. Was it last Wednesday, I think? And everybody, he was very well received. And he mentioned the idea of, how the town, we talked about the parade, and can we do the parade this year? And Chris said, can we do it a different way? And, so they were excited to hear that. And so the town and the PBA and Main Street kind of working together to see if we can get the parade, the tree lighting, and these things to occur, knowing that odds are it won't be the traditional way that we have done it before, but finding creative ways to still make it a very valuable experience.
Yep. Thank you.
Right, and I think on behalf of the town and kind of my roles with some other things I'm getting involved with every single week, one of the things we talked about was, the holiday season is such a homey time. You think about being a child, you think about being with family, you think about shopping and all these things that can bring people to our downtown. So I think if we can find some way to bring some normalcy to it, I love the ideas of bringing in other traditions and saying that, it's not just the traditional Christmas that we all associate with. It's other things that people may care about. So I think this year is going to test our creativity, and we'll see how it goes. And And if not, we'll blame it on COVID like everything else.
Right.
But I'm looking forward to working with everyone on that, both at Main Street, the PBA, obviously all of y'all, and trying to vet and implement some of these things. And it'll be on us before we know it. So we're going to hit the ground pretty soon and try to get some of these things taken care of and attended to. But I think we're going to create something really special in Pittsburgh for that holiday season, so everyone can feel comfortable and celebrate and do what they can do.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Baldwin, any updates?
Yes, I've got a couple. I'll start with the Chatham County Fairground Association. Actually, generally, the fair is held in September, and that has been canceled due to COVID-19.
Yeah.
So this year, we won't have it, but hopefully next year we will. In reference to Triangle J Council of Governments, I've sent you all, or forwarded you all an email, which was talking about the Triangle J Regional Summit, which was hosted last year here in Chatham County at the Ag Center by Chatham County. And Pittsburgh, of course, was there to help them as well. But this year it will have to be virtual. So if anyone would be interested in attending the regional summit, which it will be 5 weeks instead of 1 day, as we had it last year, it starts September 17th, which is Thursday, and then you can register for that. They should have a lot of different interesting sessions. You don't have to attend all of them, but it should be some that may be of interest to you.
Okay.
So I certainly would encourage anyone that would like to attend those sessions to go on and register so that you can attend that virtually. So those are the only two I have. I do have one other question though, and that's in reference to the Human Relations Committee. That is one of Chatham County Human Relations Committee. I don't know if we have a representative for that anymore, because I think that Commissioner Foley was the representative for that. So I guess we would need to actually locate someone who would be interested in being the representative from Pittsburgh on that committee.
Yes. Yes. Thank you for that. I completely with them that when Bat left, that spot never got filled, and you're absolutely correct. So I would encourage the commissioners to put thinking caps on and see if we can't figure out a representative for that committee.
Typically, the person who brings it up gets volunteered for it. So I'm sure that's why it's been silent on the agenda for a while.
Oh, that'll be the clone.
Congratulations, pal.
Yeah.
I wasn't making a motion of any kind. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
You're making a commotion.
Right. Correct.
John, any? I think you're muted, John.
Thank you, Mary Nas.
There you go.
Yes, there's no formal report from the Chatham County Climate Change Advisory Committee, but I did prepare some thoughts in advance just to, because we've got a little bit more time on the agenda tonight. I did want to recognize the moment in history that we're in, friends, that some things that I'm privileged to be aware of that I think we ought to recognize. And Mr. Kennedy, I appreciate you mentioning the hurricane season, because right now, we are seeing the effects of climate change. And we're right now, as I understand, we have 7 named storms in the Atlantic right now. I believe that's a record. We have the California drought and very record high temperatures in California, which those poor folks are suffering from. And I imagine everyone's seen the photographs from San Francisco that look absolutely post-apocalyptic, with a dark orange sky at noon. In fact, California is having the top 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 largest forest fires in recorded history, right, in recent days. Now, We've also seen more than our fair share of flooding in North Carolina. But we're also seeing some real positives. And I think it's always important to recognize that we're at a moment in human history also where fossil fuels, coal in particular, but natural gas, are being surpassed in cost effectiveness by wind power and solar electricity, which is just remarkable. As someone who's spent nearly 30 years at this, I almost never imagined when I was in college that this day would come that solar and wind would be so much cheaper than coal-fired electricity and competing with new natural gas-fired electricity. And battery technology is also rapidly advancing, even to the point where in some areas of Washington State, Oregon, and California, very large new power plants are being built as batteries, 75 and 100 megawatt power plants. You know, the Moncure power plant, the Cape Fear power plant, is around that size, or was before it was decommissioned, the coal-fired power plant down there. So batteries are being turned to at larger sizes and greater extents than ever in history. And this is really just a remarkable time of technological advancement. And in my day job, I'm reading projections that within the next perhaps 3 years, we will see battery prices low enough that for folks who spend a good bit of their time in the car each day, 6 to 8 hours, it will be more cost effective to own an expensive battery powered car than an internal combustion engine vehicle. So there's a bright sun rising on the horizon and brighter days ahead, but we are in really dark times right now. And
interestingly enough, and I just throw it out because in Europe, there's been amazing progress on hydrogen fueled cars. And it got me to digging in a little bit because my goodness, 38 years ago, I drove a hydrogen powered vehicle in a test, and it worked just fine. And the only difficulty was that it took 2 years before I was still in California. Scientific American devoted an entire issue of their magazine to the coming new hydrogen economy. And I find it rather amazing now that we are actually starting to see the first mass-produced hydrogen vehicles and finally figured out how to produce enough hydrogen to where it makes economic sense to do so. So I just felt compelled to share that, John.
thank you.
All right, Jay?
I don't have any updates, Mr. Mayor, but I do have numerous concerns I need to go over if this is the time you want to hear them.
Sure.
First, I have spoke with Chris regarding this, but it's regarding the a town ordinance regarding these developments that have one way in and not a second road of egress. I know I brought this up at the Griffin development, and Jeff said that the fire department and fire marshal office had already looked at it. I went back to those guys, and they gave me the North Carolina code, fire code, and it is in the North Carolina fire code where municipalities can regulate this ordinance. But I'll read it from the top right here. It says the provisions contained in this appendix are not mandatory unless specifically referenced in an adopting ordinance. I guess where I'm trying to go is, I think it's time for us to get an ordinance together that has entrance, egress, exit. I mean, I think we need more than one entrance, dead end cul-de-sacs. The Griffin townhouses was a prime example. They could easily put another entrance on the west side of that property. Like I said, I talked to Chris regarding this. If we need some communications with the fire marshal's office and the fire department, I think this needs to be moved before we get more development coming in. That's going to be a dead end block. And I'm not just saying this regarding the fire department. It could come down to police. It could come down to rescue. It could come down to some type of natural gas disaster. So I'm just not sticking to the police department. I mean, fire department with this. So I really would like to hear the board's upkeep, how they feel about this. And like I said, I have spoke with Chris about it, and I did tell him that I wanted to mention it to the other board members, and of course he was real pleased with that. So if I could get a little comment and some guidance of which way we need to go with this.
And Commissioner Farrell, kind of to tee everybody up, the Appendix D of the building code is the fire code. And
Right.
then it specifies that 1 and 2 family dwellings, that if you have in excess of 30 units, you shall provide a secondary ingress and egress. And if you're a multifamily development, if you're in excess of 100 units, you shall provide a secondary ingress and egress. I think one of the things that we deal with from our perspective is we do have I'll call it an external fire department. You know, as part of the things we're looking at with some of the UDO things that Jeff and Teresa and staff all of us are talking about is the formulation and really the adherence to a technical review committee, a TRC. And one of the integral parts of a TRC is having that fire marshal component. And they look at all life safety issues, not as Mr. Farrell said, not just the fire, but it's ambulances and police and all those types of things. So typically everything's built to, you know, the 75,000 pound, you know, ladder truck apparatus. And they figure if they can get a ladder truck in there, they can get a police cruiser in there. And so they kind of go to the worst case scenario. And some of these things aren't necessarily implied to be all paved. You can do all terrain gravel as secondary ingress and egress. They may not be open to the public. And so really the code tries to provide the fire marshal some discretion in applying those. And sometimes, you know, depending on your fire marshal, they may say if it's a divided road, hey, we'll go backwards into one exit if the other one's blocked. Others will say, I'd not like to put a fire truck into opposing traffic. So, you know, I think having that backbone in our UDO, in our zoning ordinances and such, provides certainly clear direction, especially when you have an external fire department. But certainly the way it's written now, it would be my opinion that the fire marshal has their discretion, and really if they say a secondary ingress and egress is mandated, then that's what it is, whether it's in our code or not. If we put it in our code, then it becomes more enforceable and less discretionary. So I share those couple thoughts just to kind of get y'all up to speed with Appendix D of the building code, as I hope honestly that you haven't spent a lot of time reading that.
Well, I understand where you're coming from. I'm understanding both sides, but I don't believe exactly that I'm going to say first responders, because this includes first help, the police department, that we're getting, or either they're not up to date with what needs to be done. Let me put it like that, because there's numerous other developments that we should have done had a second driveway in or entrance.
Mhm.
I agree. I think there's a benefit to everybody if we put it in our code versus an interpretation probably much later in the process by the fire marshal. I think it makes it clear. And I think if we could also put some type of requirements in there about what defines two entrances. Chris, like you mentioned, the divided highway, in my mind, that's not necessarily two entrances. I'm not sure how we quantify that necessarily, but I think that a single family, potentially less than 30 units and multifamily less than 100 units, if we could put some things on that people could go to our ordinance and see what it is versus getting an interpretation, I think that provides benefits all around, in addition to the obvious safety benefits for all the first responders. So I'd be a fan of that.
And I think some of the ordinances I'm familiar with not only deal with the number of units as to when it's required, but the length of the roadway also plays into the difficulty of access. And Chris did make mention of the idea that there are some alternative road types that's not available. And there are these, grass pave and gravel pave are these products that are very sturdy, meet the 75,000 pound criteria, and are typically blocked off with a bollard. So, when the fire department shows up or some emergency vehicle shows up, they've got the special wrench to operate that bollard, and in they go. So those are some options that we should probably have on the table.
Yes, I agree. I think actually each development, no matter what size it is, needs to have some type of egress and degress, because and I don't need to tell the board what we've gone through in reference to one particular place. We tried various things to try to get an exit, which all failed basically. So that particular development was approved without that concern. Well, that may have not been of concern and no one may have realized it. But I think at this particular point, just as Commissioner Farrell has indicated, this is something we really need to do. And when we were looking at the Griffin information, I did ask them to consider putting another entrance there. So I don't know if they're going to do that or not, but I do think that we need to put it in the ordinance. And also, just as Commissioner Fiocco was saying, it may, and you also, Mr. Kennedy, it may be that it's a particular type where it could be grass or gravel to be used in the case of an emergency. But I think it definitely needs to be one, because you never know what can happen and what type of emergency could happen, and that one entrance could be blocked. It could be a lot of different scenarios. So yes, I'm definitely in favor of doing that.
I share these concerns.
I got a list if you guys got a few more minutes. I've had numerous, not developers, but property owners come to me in the last week regarding an update on the force main to Sanford, that they have property and they understand we don't have any sewer. I said, well, we have some sewer, but they understand we don't have a viable amount. I guess I'm just asking maybe Mr. Messick or Chris, what kind of update on a time frame are we looking to Sanford start construction, or possibly a finish date? I don't, just give me something I can pass on.
I'll defer
Chris,
to-
you want me to answer?
Go ahead, Mr. Messick.
Mr. Farrell, the process is still with the state in terms of granting what's known as the finding of no significant impact. And we are awaiting comments from various state agencies, including the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, which is supposed to be imminent. And then there will be a 30-day period for the publication of the environmental report that the Wooten and Company prepared. It's called the clearinghouse process, and we'll wait to see if there are any comments from that as well. And if they're not, then we are probably in a good position to go forward with securing the loan and getting the project advertised for bids, and maybe even getting started by the end of the year. But it's still going to take 18 months to build it.
Right. Okay. So we're still looking at minimum 2 years, more or less, right? In that neighborhood, 24 months.
It'll be in 2022, yes, sir.
Okay. All right. You didn't by any chance give my phone number out, did you, Mr. Messick? Can you hear me?
Which one?
You didn't by any
Which
chance
one?
give my phone number out.
Which
Okay.
phone number did you want me to give?
I don't worry. BR 549. All right. The other thing I got is just simple little things that a couple of people have asked me is regarding the yards that have been disturbed on 64 East Street that Mastech has put in the water lines and sewer lines on both the north and south side of 64. Numerous yards have not been repaired. Several people used to mow this grass all the way up to 64. If you ride down there, you'll still see they got silt and erosion stakes up in there. Grass is knee high, and they tell me they ain't even able to walk out there because of the rocks are so thick, big, and all like that. So I just maybe somebody needs to check into that with Mastech when they're possibility of doing some grading or some landscaping.
I'll make that call, Mr. Farrell.
Okay. One other thing, and this may have been took care of, Chris, was a lady called me about Mary Hayes Homeless Park over here that hadn't been mowed in a while. Hopefully it has been mowed now since it's been opened up. I think we do have contractors that mow that, correct?
That's the first I would have discovered that, so I'm not sure. I'll have to look that up for you.
I
Jay,
know we do have one on the Kiwanis Park as a contractor.
Jay, Mary Holmes is being taken care of now.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
I'm glad
That's
somebody.
all I have. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to hold us up too long, but I do appreciate everybody listening. And the concerns that I have are also concerns from the citizens.
Yeah. Thank you, Jay. Appreciate it.
Mr. Mayor, I realized I forgot the Chatham County Affordable Housing Advisory Committee as well.
Yes.
The applications are open for the trust fund now, and so that's available for any group to apply for that funding. Any questions need to be in by October 11th, and the final applications due by October 16th.
Right.
So it's a good opportunity for funding there.
Yep.
Kyle, do you know the fund balance that's available?
I don't. Pamela, do you know?
Unfortunately, I do not.
Okay.
But certainly we can find out.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay. Hey, anything else, the commissioners or the town manager? Well, in that case, I would entertain a motion to adjourn at 8:43 p.m.
So moved.
Is there?
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. Thank you all very much. Oh,
Thank you,
one
Brad.
thing before, it isn't a part of the meeting, but I just wanted to thank the interim police chief for his very thoughtful and well put together response
Very
to the
good.
questions that were asked, and congratulate him, I think, on another job well done. Thank you very much, Shorty.
Thank
Thank you,
you. I
Mike.
agree. Very good.
Thanks, Shorty.
Thank you. I had some technical help on that, so I do appreciate it.
Thank you.
What would we all be without help?
That's right.
Exactly.
Everyone have a wonderful rest of the week, and thank you.
Good night.
Good
Thank you, Mayor. Thank
Good
you.
night to everyone. Good night.
Good night.